Your title says 0 to 1 Notes on Startups, How to Build the Future. Does that mean you contain a blueprint, a unique formula for building successful startups of the future? Not really. It takes more than just reading a book. The paradox of teaching entrepreneurship is that there is no one unique formula to achieve success, because every innovation is new and unique. No authority and no successful entrepreneur can give you a secret formula on how to be innovative. If anyone says otherwise, that person is a fraud. Okay, so what exactly are you about? I am based on everything my author Peter Thiel learned directly as a co-founder of PayPal and then as an investor in hundreds of startups including Facebook and SpaceX. It stems from a course about startups that he taught at Stanford in 2012. College students can become extremely skilled at a few specialities, but many never learn what to do with those skills in the wider world. His primary goal in teaching the class was to help students see beyond the tracks laid down by college education to the broader future that is theirs to create. One of those students took detailed class notes, and from those notes I came into being. While I have noticed many patterns in the business world, this book offers no formula for success. However, the single most powerful pattern I have noticed is that successful people find value in unexpected places, and they do this by thinking about business from first principles instead of formulas. First principles, right? Even Elon Musk recommends it. For those of you who don't know what that is, first principles is a physics way of looking at the world. This term was first coined 2000 years ago by the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle. He proposed that the best way to understand a subject is to break it down into its most fundamental principles, or in simple words, breaking down things to their most basic forms. Here's a little thought experiment. Just look at the device you are watching this video on, a smartphone, iPad or a laptop. Now think about what it is made of, its components, etc. Then think about where those components and parts came from and what are they made of. Keep breaking it down and digging deeper, and you will realize how important the rare earth elements from the periodic table are. Yeah, the same periodic table you were taught in school. Basically, it is about breaking down things and problems into small parts and reassembling them to come up with innovative solutions. I will link down a video that explains how to use the first principles of thinking to invent something new. Anyway, back to our guest. Let's start from the basics. How do you define a startup? In the most simplistic terms, a startup is the largest group of people you can convince of a plan to build a different future. Well, that was quick. Throughout the book, you keep bringing up the term building the future, but a lot of the young entrepreneurs, including me, feel that there is not much room left for innovating something new. All of our big problems have been solved already. I don't think so. We make the mistake of thinking that technology is only limited to computers and the internet, but technology is the new way of doing things, and this definition encompasses everything we do or consume. Here is a quick history lesson. Throughout our history, creating new technology has never been easy. It never was and it never will be. Our ancestors lived in static zero-sum societies where success meant seizing things from others. They created new sources of wealth only rarely. And in the long run, they could never create enough to save an average person from an extremely hard life. Then it took us thousands of years to make a transition from being hunter-gatherers to becoming a farmer and producing enough food for large populations. Even during the medieval period, technological progress was painfully slow until someone invented the printing press and made the spread of knowledge easy. However, the modern world experienced relentless technological progress only after the invention of the steam engine in the 1760s. After that, we inherited a richer society than any previous generation would have been able to imagine. People expected that progress to continue. In the 20th century, people looked forward to 4-day work week and vacations on the moon. They thought energy will become cheaper, but it did not happen. We got smartwatches and the internet that distract us from our surroundings and also distract us from the fact that our surroundings are strangely old. Only computers and communications have improved dramatically in the last 50 years. Now that doesn't mean our parents were wrong to imagine a better future. They were only wrong to expect it as something automatic. Today our challenge is to both imagine and create the new technologies that can make the 21st century more peaceful and prosperous than the 20th. Consider this, without technological change, if China doubles its energy production over the next 2 decades, it will also double its air pollution. If every one of India's hundreds of millions of households were to live the way Americans already do, using only today's tools and technology, the result would be environmentally catastrophic. Spreading old ways to create wealth around the world will result in devastation, not riches. In a world of scarce resources, globalization without new technology is unsustainable. Keep in mind that technology is not just limited to computers. Technology means a better way of doing things. Now it is up to aspiring entrepreneurs to find ways to do things more efficiently, be it in manufacturing or any other field. Fair point. It reminded me of what Elon Musk once said. He stated, "I think there are too many smart people pursuing internet stuff, finance and law. That is part of the reason why we haven't seen as much innovation." So it seems the entrepreneurs of the future have a lot of problems to deal with. It's only a matter of perspective. But still, your approach sounded very generalistic. How did you encourage your students at Stanford to look harder for solutions? What practical steps can aspiring entrepreneurs take? Most importantly, where exactly can they start? How do they know where to start? Okay, I will give you 3 ways to start practically. If you are an entrepreneur living in a developing economy, say China or India, it is very easy for you. You just have to look at what business model is working in developed countries and copy it. Make some adjustments according to the needs of the people of your country, and just like that, you have something to start with. Look at China. The Chinese have been straightforwardly copying everything that has worked in the developed world. 19th century railroads, 20th century air conditioning, and even entire cities. They might skip a few steps along the way, going straight to wireless without installing landlines for instance, but they are copying all the same. Yeah, or like in India, Ola is a copy of Uber, or Flipkart a copy of Amazon. But they made some really innovative changes that suit the Indian market, like introducing the cash on delivery feature, better UI well suited to Indian masses, Ola's book your cab offline feature. And now both of them are beating Amazon and Uber at their own game in India. Anyway, that was the first. What are the 2 other ways? The next 2 steps are based on a good understanding of how progress happens. It can take one of 2 forms. Number 1, horizontal or extensive progress. This means copying things that work and making slight iterations with few changes to existing technology along the way, going from 1 to n. Entrepreneurs taking inspiration from the startups of developed countries is a great example of horizontal progress. The second form is the most difficult, the vertical or intensive progress, which means doing new things, going from 0 to 1. Vertical progress is harder to imagine because it requires doing something nobody else has ever done. Every moment in business happens only once. The next Bill Gates will not build an operating system. The next Larry Page or Sergey Brin won't make a search engine. And the next Mark Zuckerberg won't create a social network. If you are copying these guys, you are not learning from them. If you take one typewriter and build 100, you have made horizontal progress. If you have a typewriter and build a word processor, you have made vertical progress. Entrepreneurs who will build products based on vertical progress model are gonna be the most inspiring figures of the future. That's 100% correct. I am with you on this. But don't you think coming up with something entirely new has its downsides? The more revolutionary technology someone builds, the more one faces resistance from society. The more it becomes difficult to convince people about its value, and even more difficult to implement and scale it. Take for example blockchain technology, a great example of vertical progress, completely new. Even in the developed world, regulators are harassing the crypto projects even though blockchain technology has proved again and again that it can democratize finance and do much more. So basically it is tough to scale up the innovative solutions. How does one deal with that? That's a very good question I don't have an answer to, but have some experience that I would like to share. In 1998, when we started PayPal, we wanted to create a new internet currency. We wanted to let people send each other money seamlessly. Our first product let people send money from one Palm Pilot to another. Palm Pilot was a small device only journalists used back then. And guess what? Those same journalists voted us one of the 10 worst business ideas of the year. So then we thought, what is the existing technology that most people are using right now? The answer was email. So we decided to create a new way to send and receive payments over email. And it worked. Anyone could log into our website and easily transfer money. So the lesson here is that entrepreneurs should try to use the existing technology people are familiar with to scale their business, building your products on top of the existing popular technology, one step at a time. Interesting. In the book, a lot has been written about competition, how sometimes entrepreneurs underestimate competition or sometimes take it just too seriously. Would you care to elaborate? Look, competition works differently at different levels. Here are two scenarios. Scenario number 1, when you underestimate competition. In the beginning, most entrepreneurs tend to underestimate the competition. They tell themselves a story about how unique their product is. But when they actually start a business, they feel the real heat. It happens because they describe their market extremely narrowly. They understate the scale of competition, but that is the biggest mistake a startup can make. Suppose you want to start a restaurant that serves British food in your city. You might think no one else is doing it, so I will definitely dominate the market. That's only true if the relevant market is the market for British food specifically. What if the actual market is for restaurants and food in general? And what if all the restaurants in nearby towns are part of the relevant market as well? No one wants to eat the same food all the time. So if you lose sight of competitive reality and focus on trivial, small differentiating factors that make you different, your business is unlikely to survive. Maybe you think your dish is superior because of your great-grandmother's recipe, but that is just a story people tell themselves to feel superior. So always do a thorough market research before starting your business. Scenario number 2, know when to stop competing. From our childhood itself, education system conditions our brains to be competitive with our peers. The more grades you get, the more you get praised. And that's why a lot of the time we waste our time in unnecessary competition. In the business world, take for example Google versus Microsoft. At one point the two giants became so obsessively competitive with each other that they just keep copying each other's products. Bing versus Google Search, Explorer versus Chrome, Microsoft Office versus Google Docs. Apple came along with its innovative products and surpassed both of them. In January 2013, Apple's market capitalization was $500 billion, while Google's and Microsoft combined were worth $467 billion. Just 3 years before, Microsoft and Google were each more valuable than Apple. Because of unnecessary competition that could have been avoided, Google and Microsoft lost their dominance. Rivalry causes us to overemphasize old opportunities and slavishly copy what has worked in the past. But imagine if someone is running a small startup. Competition is just so fierce that there is no escape. What should entrepreneurs do in such situations? I would say consider joining hands with them. A merger. If you cannot beat the rival, it may be better to merge. Here's an interesting story of why I decided to merge PayPal with Elon Musk's X.com. I started PayPal with my co-founder Max Levchin in 1998. When we released PayPal product in late 1999, Elon Musk's X.com was right on our heels. Our company's offices were 4 blocks apart on University Avenue in Palo Alto, and X.com's product was very similar to ours, feature for feature. By late 1999, we were in all-out war. Many of us at PayPal started working for 100 hours in a week, but the focus wasn't on objective productivity, not on innovation. The focus was defeating X.com. But in February 2000, Elon and I were more scared about the rapidly inflating tech bubble than we were about each other. A financial crash would ruin us both before we could finish our fight. So in early March, we met at a cafe and negotiated a 50-50 merger. Competing with someone so fiercely and suddenly joining hands with them was not easy, but it worked. As a unified team, we were able to ride out the dot-com crash and then build a successful business. Look, I'm not saying you shouldn't fight. Sometimes you do have to fight. Where that is true, you should fight and win. There is no middle ground. Either don't throw any punches or strike hard and end it quickly. Winning is better than losing, but everybody loses when the war is not worth fighting. So before starting a fight, make sure the war is worth fighting. Alright, that was insightful. Now I'm gonna read one quote from you. All happy companies are different. Each one earns a monopoly by solving a unique problem. All failed companies are the same. They failed to escape competition. So achieving monopoly and escaping competition, how does that work? Can someone work on them simultaneously? You can achieve monopoly and escape competition at the same time. Here are 2 ways. Number 1, proprietary technology. Proprietary technology is any combination of processes, tools, or systems of interrelated connections that are the property of a business or individual. These unique combinations provide a benefit or a competitive advantage to the owners of proprietary technologies. It is the most substantial advantage a company can have because it makes your product difficult or impossible to replicate. Google's search algorithms, for example, gives results better than anyone else's. It would be very hard for anyone to do to Google what Google did to all other search engine companies in the early 2000s. Then the second slightly easier way is to make something 10 times better. If you can radically improve an existing solution or technology and make it 10 times better, you can escape competition. Here are 3 examples. PayPal made buying and selling on eBay at least 10 times better. Instead of mailing a check that would take 7 to 10 days to arrive, PayPal let buyers pay as soon as an auction ended. Sellers received their money right away, and unlike with a check, they knew the funds were good. Amazon made its first 10x improvement in a particularly visible way. They offered at least 10 times as many books as any other bookstore. When it launched in 1995, Amazon could claim to be Earth's largest bookstore. Because unlike a retail bookstore that might stock 1 lakh books, Amazon did not need to physically store any inventory. It simply requested a title from its supplier whenever a customer made an order. You can also make a 10x improvement through a superior integrated design. Before 2010, tablet computing was so poor that for all practical purposes the market did not even exist. Microsoft Windows XP Tablet PC Edition products first shipped in 2002, and Nokia released its own internet tablet in 2005. But they were not user-friendly at all. Then Apple launched the iPad with a lot of design improvements, and suddenly tablets went from being unusable to useful. Only service businesses find it extremely difficult to escape competition and become a monopoly. Let's say if you own a yoga studio, you will only be able to serve a certain number of customers. You can hire more instructors and expand to more locations, but your margins will remain fairly low, and you will never reach a point where only you can provide something of value to millions of separate clients as software engineers are able to do. Now that's what I call 100% pragmatic approach. Until now, we covered a lot of important aspects of running and building a successful startup. Now let's get to the most important thing that most young entrepreneurs lack: money. How to get investors to fund your ideas. What is the most efficient way of convincing investors to fund your startup? Look, every entrepreneur out there should write this down somewhere. The value of a business today is sum of all the money it will make in the future. Compare the value of the New York Times company with Twitter. Each employs a few thousand people and each gives millions of people a way to get news. But when Twitter went public in 2013, it was valued at $24 billion, more than 12 times the New York Times market capitalization. Even though the Times earned $133 million in 2012 while Twitter lost money. What explains the huge premium for Twitter? The answer is projected future cash flows. A great business is defined by its ability to generate cash flows in the future. Investors expect that Twitter will be able to capture monopoly profits over the next decade, while newspapers' monopoly days are over. If you start a successful restaurant, you might be able to make good money from day one, but there is no guarantee that it will stay the same. In future, you might face severe competition and cash flows will probably dwindle over the next few years when customers move on to newer and trendier alternatives. Technology companies follow the opposite trajectory. They often lose money for the first few years because it takes time to build valuable things, and that means delayed revenue. Most of the tech companies' value will come at least 10 to 15 years in the future. LinkedIn is another great example of a company whose value exists in the far future. As of early 2014, its market capitalization was $24.5 billion and only $21.6 million in net income for 2012. You might look at these numbers and conclude that investors have gone insane, but this valuation makes sense when you consider LinkedIn's projected future cash flows. For a company to be valuable, it must grow and endure. But many entrepreneurs focus only on short-term growth. They have an excuse. Growth is easy to measure, but durability is not. Those who succumb to measurement mania obsess about weekly active user statistics, monthly revenue targets, and quarterly earning reports. But investors make decisions based on the predicted profits or projected future cash flows. However, you can hit your short-term targets and still look deeper and harder to measure problems that threaten the durability of your business. So the lesson here is that you must be able to project future cash flows in front of the investors. They are gonna make the decision to invest based on that. If investors are convinced about your future projected cash flows, they will invest right away. That's quite out of the box advice. I don't know about others, but I have never heard or read about what you just told. Or maybe I'm just immature, I need to grow a lot. Final question for you. What are the things that every young entrepreneur should avoid? Here are 3 things every entrepreneur should avoid. Number 1, neglecting foundation. I stress this so often that friends have teasingly nicknamed it Thiel's law. A startup messed up at its foundation cannot be fixed. Bad decisions made early on, if you choose the wrong partner or hire the wrong people for example, are very hard to correct after they are made. It may take a crisis on the order of bankruptcy before anybody will even try to correct them. As a founder, your first job is to get the first things right, because you cannot build a great company on a flawed foundation. Number 2. Choosing the wrong co-founder. When you start something, the first and most crucial decision you make is whom to start it with. Choosing a co-founder is like getting married, and founder conflict is just as ugly as divorce. Technical abilities and complementary skill sets matter, but how well the founders know each other and how well they work together matters just as much. Founders should share a prehistory before they start a company together, otherwise they are just rolling a dice. Number 3. Competing with big companies on marketing. Every entrepreneur envies a recognizable ad campaign, but startups should resist the temptation to compete with bigger companies in the endless contest to put on the most memorable TV spots or the most elaborate or expensive PR stunt. A good sales strategy always starts small. Marketing and advertising work for relatively low-priced products that have mass appeal but lack any method of viral distribution. New startups should come up with affordable and creative advertising campaigns. Yeah, we have an interesting case study on that. It is based on India's e-tech unicorn Byju's, how it spent enormous amount of money on advertising and kept making the losses. That's episode number 10 on the Wisdom Podcast. Imagine a world where books could speak, where the characters and ideas within their pages could come to life and engage with us directly. On this podcast, I intend to create such a world. Here I ask questions to the world's most influential books on finance, business, and personal growth, and receive personalized guidance based on the knowledge and wisdom contained within their pages. Join me on this journey as we explore the transformative power of literature and the magic of books that can speak.